Hello and welcome to another episode of Friar Territory. I'm your host, Kyle Glaser, alongside three-time Padres All-Star closer Heath Bell. Heath, spring is in the air. Pitchers and catchers report this week. Padres pitchers and catchers report today. I know from my perspective, this is always one of the most fun days of the offseason. You're just kind of waiting for it. From your perspective as a player, I mean, was this an exciting day for you? What was it like for you, the first day pitchers and catchers report?
It's really exciting about the new year. My anniversary is on Valentine's Day, so sometimes I'd miss it, sometimes I wouldn't. So every year was different, but it's exciting because you get to see your old buddies, your compadres, your teammates. Basically, like if it seems like your second family again, and it's really exciting to see everybody again. So that's spring training is just it's kind of like it's a national holiday for pitchers and catchers, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I know fans, journalists, everyone, after an off season of talking about trades and all the off the field stuff, it's exciting to just get back out on a field and be watching actual baseball. Was there ever a time for you where, looking at it, you would be like, I wish I had one more week to, have an off season, or by the time it rolled around, were you ready to roll?
Um, Honestly, I always had to come in making weight. So because everybody was like, "You're so big," especially with the Mets, but Padres weren't too worried about it. But if I came in like at the same weight I finished the year at and not 20 pounds lighter, then the fitness guy would kind of look at me and say, "Hey, you're going to gain 15, 20 pounds. You need to work at it." So for me, it was if I had an extra few days, it was okay. But no, it was never really like man, I wish I had another week at home or something. I remember my kids kind of pushing me out of the house because I'm kind of the disciplinary or too. So they could run over mom a little bit more. And they're like, "Want Dad leave? Why don't you go to spring training? Why don't you leave? So you wouldn't be here punishing us if we do something wrong. We can kind of sneak by mom, but no, not really. Maybe get an extra pound or two. But also, here's the thing: I'd like to show up a day or two early to spring training just to kind of get my locker, get my feet wet, the different time zone or whatnot, and just kind of get there so it's not like because the first day of spring training, everybody shows up
Yeah.
and all different times of the day. But then it's like, is your uniform fit? Is this fit? Is that there? Is your shoes there? Is your gloves there? If you get a day early or 2 days early, you can kind of do it. You don't have to be in a rush. Then the clubbies won't have so much going on. Like, hey, we gotta get with 30 pitchers in camp. We got to make sure they're all ready. They're freaking out. Does everybody have this? Everybody have that? Is everything okay? So you can, if you get there a day early or you're the first one there, you kind of like you're not so rushed. You're kind of chilled out a little bit. So I used to get there like a day or two early. I don't think my wife liked it, but I did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, as we mentioned, Padres pitchers and catchers, excuse me, officially report today. And again, it's still very, very early. A lot of spring is left. I think the main thing coming in that you want to see first and foremost, and this is true for every team, but it's especially true for the Padres when specifically regard to their pitchers. You just want to see everyone stay healthy. We've talked about right now the starting rotation's a little thin at the back end with Matt Waldron and Randy Vasquez. There's not a whole lot of starting pitching depth. So really for you, Darvish, Michael King, Dylan Cease, the biggest key is just staying healthy through the spring and obviously through the season as well. As a pitcher who went through this, what were the keys to you in terms of staying healthy through the spring and find that balance of you want to ramp up and be ready for opening day, but you don't want to push it too much?
So this is what I did. I know a lot of pitchers didn't do this. So I'm a pitcher as a reliever, and you come in throwing 25, 30 pitches the first bullpen. I would have my last three bullpens. I'd go about 70%, but my last three bullpens, I would throw about 100 pitches. It was almost like get overly prepared with all my pitches, not max effort, but almost there. A couple pitches max effort, but not all of them. And so then when I got to spring training, it was almost like I took a step back because I was only allowed to throw 25, 30. The first bullpen was like, you're only allowed to throw fastballs, maybe fastballs and changeups. And they didn't want you to throw your curveball too much. Well, that's fine because I've been throwing my curveball for a month. So it was kind of like I got a little rest period the first week. And I trained that last 2 weeks before I got to spring. I trained really hard. So my first week of spring training was kind of like a step back, kind of pulled off, pushed on the brakes and pulled off the gas a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be taxed. I'd be like, I'd have all this energy. And then, I'd kind of like, put on cruise control for a little bit, then ramp it up a little bit, then games would start. So I was kind of maybe the old school way of doing things, train super hard and super early. So when you get there, this is my mindset. I don't know how I came up with it. If I was going to run a marathon, I was going to train to run 2 marathons. So when I ran a marathon, I only had to run one. It would be a lot easier for me. That was kind of my thinking of spring training to get ready for spring.
It's interesting you say that because I think now there's a lot of focus on how many pitchers are going to these off-season, throwing, air centers, if you will.
Yeah.
You have Driveline, you have so many of these training facilities, and there's a lot of concern that guys aren't really getting enough rest time. And so what's happening is we see guys showing up to spring training, pumping 97, 98 on, February 13th. But by the time May or June comes around, they're done. Their arms they suffer an arm injury.
Here's the thing is I think everybody's trying to throw max effort all the time.
Yeah.
There would be some, if I'm throwing a 100-pitch bullpen, the first 30 would be at 70%. Then I wrap it up to like 80, 90%. Then I'd probably have like, pitches 40 through 50, maybe try to max effort it. And then I'd bring it back down to 70% again. It wasn't, I'm going full tilt the whole time, and then coming into spring training, it was all about how I feel, but also hitting my spots. It wasn't about throwing max effort. It was about hitting my spots. And the first week to 2 was all about hitting my spots. And if I'm consistently hitting my spots, I'd ramp it up a little bit. Like for, if I'm throwing 10 fastballs, maybe 2 or 3, I'd rear back. And the other 8 or 7, I would, be at 70, 80%, kind of not going through the motions, but not full tilt at all. I could ramp it up to 100 miles an hour, but I sat at like 93, 94 miles an hour. And that's kind of where in spring training, I'd show up to spring training and I'd be throwing like 86, 88 the first 2 weeks because I wasn't airing it out. I was like, I built up so the 2 weeks, and then I kind of needed that break the first 2 weeks of camp, and then games would start. And then I'd get up to 90. And by the end of the spring, I'm mid to upper 90s. It was kind of a gradual thing for me where I think guys now are so like, they try to max effort, squatting, with their legs and stuff. Where I took it, I had a strength guy. He was a great guy, Jim Malone. He was about, I want you strong for a long period of time. So I don't want you to do 10 reps or your max reps and see how many you can do, or do 5, whatever. I want to see you be able to do 25 or 50 reps with a good weight that you're going to be exhausted, but you could do 50 to 100 reps. So therefore you're strong for a long period of time. You're not going to be the strongest guy out there, but if you're wrestling with somebody, eventually he's going to get tired and you're not. Yeah. So you just got to stay with them, and then you can beat them towards the end. It's kind of like the season's a marathon season. Be strong right here and not have this plateau that everybody does. I feel like nowadays you go right here. You're slowly going down, but not really. You're staying strong the whole time. And I feel like guys nowadays, like you said, coming to camp throwing 98 miles an hour, whatever happened to 70, 80% bullpens? Let's work on control. I feel like guys don't focus on control as much as they used to. Now it's about how hard you throw or the spin rotation, and it's about your stuff. Then it's about, can you throw strikes or not? Because you look on YouTube and you see all these facilities, that you're talking about. Yeah. If you actually watch where the guys are throwing the ball, it's never where the catcher would be. It's never a strike, but the ball's like, it's 10 feet over his head or whatnot. And I'm like, that's great for an outfielder because they got to throw it so far. But now as a pitcher, they're not throwing downhill. So yeah, velocity is there, but I don't think pitching is there anymore.
There's no question. There's definitely been an emphasis on, metrics, whether it's, your velocity, your ride, your movement, your spin rate. And like I always say, your curveball can have the nastiest spin rate in the world. If it's a ball out of the hand, it doesn't matter. You can throw 103 miles an hour if it's, 3 feet outside the strike zone. It just doesn't matter. It still has to be a strike. It still has to, at some point, the hitter has to think, oh, I have to swing at this. If it's a ball out of the hand, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, it's effectively wild now. You ever heard that term as like,
of course.
You throw a couple strikes, then you'll throw one 5 feet over the head and throw a couple strikes. It's kind of effectively wild.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like nowadays a lot of guys are effectively wild hitters. They struggle because you'll see him swinging a bad pitch because two pitches are there and then two pitches are not. So it's like, is he going to, and the ball's coming in so hard now. Maybe sabermetrics says that's a good thing. But I look back at like Tom Glavine, Smoltz, and Maddox. Those guys were filthy. I mean, Tom Glavine, I remember telling me, I asked him, when do you start throwing? He goes, when I show up to spring training. I don't throw hard, so all I got to do is just work on my stuff. So I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then I remember Trevor Hoffman was always saying, you only have so many bullets in your arm. I looked at it as like I wanted my arm to be really strong long term in any form. So I could throw a football, I could throw a softball, I could throw a baseball, I could throw a tennis ball. Maybe not all really hard, but I could throw them all. I could throw from up here that I pitched with, and I could throw over here when I'm tired or whatnot, and it wouldn't hurt myself. Where I remember like Mark Pryor had great pitching mechanics, and so did Steven Strasburg, but both of them had arm surgeries because they would only throw right here in their perfect slot. And if you dropped it like an inch, that would hurt their arm because they're always just right here. And I'm like, well, sometimes when you pick up the ball from the ground, you got to throw it to first. You can't get up here. You got to throw from down here. So I'd try to practice all these different arm angles. So my body was used to throwing it all these different ways. So nothing would hurt it. I don't know if that made sense, but that was my thought process. And some people thought I was quirky and weird, but hey, it worked for me.
Yeah, no, clearly, again, you had a great career. As we move into spring training here again with pitchers and catchers reporting, you mentioned, a lot of the pitchers, you want to see them more beat 70, 80% as opposed to, throwing 98 out the chute. What is something that you always look for when now that you're, past your playing days, you're retired, but you're still active in the game, watching the game? What do you look for from pitchers in spring training to have a feel for, hey, they're on track for a good season, or hey, something looks a little bit off here?
The funny part is playing catch from the first pitch to the last pitch of playing catch. If you watched all the great pitchers, when they played catch, they hit the guy in the chest probably 95% of the time, 99% of the time. Now, guys, you see guys catch the ball over here, maybe over here or over here, below your mid waist. And it's, I would talk to high school and college kids a lot. And I always, the first couple throws, it's a little high or a little off. And I'm like, hey, why aren't you trying to hit a target? And they're like, well, I'm getting my arm loose. And I go, then what'd you do? Did you just stretch to get loose? I don't understand the difference. Mechanics, you've been doing it for years, especially in the professional level, especially in the big league level. You should be able to do that with your eyes closed, your mechanics. So it's just one of those things that when you see a guy play catch and he's hitting the guy right in the chest, kind of where he wants, and he's talking and having a good time, and it seems like he's nonchalant, that guy's focused. That guy has done a lot what he's needed to do to prepare himself to get there. But you go show up to spring training and some guys are a little bit all over the place, or even working on pitches, this and that, and it's not right between the shoulders and above the belly and below your chin. You're kind of like, did he really work on it, or did he just rear back and try to throw hard? Because a lot of pitchers nowadays that I've talked to, and this is some of the minors, mostly in college, it's, I can't get my stuff to work unless I throw hard. Where I'm looking at it as it's easier to do things when you're doing it slow than fast. It's easier to drive a car when you're going slow than it is when you're fast. But if you're a NASCAR guy, you mean you can't drive unless you're just going 100 miles an hour? So it just doesn't make sense. It's almost like, well, I got to throw as hard as I can. That's the only way stuff goes. So they don't, like what I said before, they're not pitching. They don't know their mechanics. They're just throwing really hard, and they've been doing it for such a long time they can repeat it, but they can't do it when they're slow. Like I remember somebody, I don't know who said this, it was years ago, and it was as somebody told me, he goes, look, if you can't teach it, then you don't know it. If you can teach what you're doing, then you're kind of a master at it, then you can teach somebody else. But if you're just really good at like hitting or pitching and you can't teach a 5-10-year-old, then you really don't know what you're doing. You're good at it because it's just God-given, but you're not a master at it. You're just really good at it. So
In terms of, we've talked about again, Yu Darvish, Dylan Cease, Michael King. It's really, really important for the Padres that they stay healthy throughout spring training. Matt Waldron and Randy Vasquez are two younger pitchers who, as we've talked about last year, Matt Waldron had a really good first half, kind of fell off in the second half. Randy Vasquez, opposite, really struggled the first half, got better in the second half. When you talk about pitchers looking to take a step and go from being, hey, they showed some good things, to okay, now they're legit 30 starts a year, reliable, consistent, solid. What are the things that you want to see pitchers do during spring and the offseason? What helps a pitcher make that jump from your experience?
Well, it's easy to come into spring training when you know you have the job, because you're not like, I have to be ready right away. So you're basically battling for position. So every outing you're going out there, you want all your best stuff. You want your fast curve change or whatever, your 3-4 pitches. If you, like you, Darvish, could come in the first 2 weeks, just throw fastballs and go, I just want to establish my fastball, or I want to get my fastball to move a little bit. And then this game, I'm going to throw more breaking balls and fastballs because I want to get it good. And if I give them some runs, it's not a big deal. It's spring training. When you're young and trying to make a team, you can't do that. It's like you have to be ready. Instead of pitching 6 months of the season, you're almost pitching 7 months, because you have to have that, you're ready to go as soon as spring training. Not like, okay, just fastballs and changeups, guys. Yeah, but you want your best fastball and your best changeup those days. Not just, I'm getting a feel because now I'm seeing some hitters. Yeah. So what you really want to establish is your control, hitting your spots. And so, the strike zone is like right here. And some umpires, my day, occasionally, if you threw it right on the black, they would call it a ball. So you'd have to go an inch inside. Can you adjust to go an inch inside, or bring it down, or bring it up? And then can you adjust to kind of bring it out a little bit more, or this and that? So that's all about adjustments. Having your, I was big on hitting the catcher where, hitting the glove, wherever the catcher put the glove. And in spring training, I would love to see catchers, how they they drop your glove. Well, in spring training, just stick it there, keep it there longer. And I would have my catchers stick it there a little bit longer if like they drop the glove, because they would during wind ups and whatnot. But I would tell them in spring training, I need a target. I need that target a little bit more in spring. And then the last 2 weeks or the last week of spring training, you can start doing normal, but I need this. And a lot of times in spring training, you're not getting your main catcher until the last 2 weeks anyway. You're getting a bench guy or whatnot, or a AAA guy. So you just tell them, and hopefully they listen to you and they help you get better. And, for them, it's all about, I think, hitting. If they hit, they're going to have a chance in the big leagues. Not if they throw everybody out in spring training but don't hit, they're not going to make it up for that. So they have to hit most likely. But that's the biggest thing. I think if I was a coach for the Padres right now, it would be all about control. Can you throw a ball on the outside corner when you need to? And can you throw a strike on the outside corner when you need to? That's the biggest thing. Like, there's some pitchers out there that I know in spring training, they're like, look, I'm going to throw first pitch, I'm going to throw a first strike, and next pitch I'm going to throw for a ball, and I'm only going to throw fastballs. And that's what they did. They didn't care if they walked people that day, because they were just going fast. They were going strike, ball, strike, ball, strike, ball. And that's what they were working on, because sometimes you need a throwaway pitch, and you don't want to throw one on the outside corner just off the plate, and you get too much of the plate and the guy hits it, especially, in August and September or, October.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned the catchers, and that's obviously a very, very important component of this. When pitchers and catchers report, a lot of focus on the arms, but especially when you have new catchers coming in and you have to establish that rapport, this could be a critical time. Elias Diaz joined the Padres at the very end of the season last year, but again, didn't play a whole lot, so there's still some familiarity there that needs to be built up. The Padres brought in Martin Maldonado on a minor league deal. Also, these guys are veterans. They've been around the block, but it's still new teammates, new pitchers they're going to be working with. What were some of the things that you would do to establish rapport with catchers? Was it on-field stuff? Was it off-field stuff? How did you maximize this time, to kind of get to know your new catchers?
Off the field's nice, but sometimes people have families or whatnot. So if on the field, especially the next 10 days, pitchers and catchers, when pitchers are usually done, and they can go out and work out, and then the catchers start hitting at the end. Yeah. I would go shag for the catchers. And then, hey man, you really hit the ball that day, or this and that, kind of build a relationship there. And then then I'd also do this little trick when I'm throwing bullpens, and guys would love me over other guys because pitchers are notorious to saying, "Hey, one more or two more," and when they say two more pitches, one's perfect down the pitch, right where they want it. Then the last one, that second one, is usually a ball, and they're like one more. Then it's one more, and before you know it, you're throwing 5 or 6 extra. You have the coach say, "Come on, we're only throwing 25 today, and you're at 32." I would tell the catchers, "Hey, two more. Throw one pitch, be done. Walk away." And they're like, "I thought you said two more." I'm like, "I finished that one." Or I would say, "Hey, one more," and I'd throw a pitch and it'd be a ball. Like say I throw a curveball and totally, hang it or whatever. And I'd be like, "I'm good." And they'd go, "Don't you want to finish on a good one?" And I learned this in college, actually. I said, "Well, I'd love to finish on a good one, but sometimes I'm going to throw a pitch and I'm going to walk somebody or give up a run. Coach is going to pull me. I can't say, 'Hey, can I go throw one more in the bullpen to feel better?' So I have to learn how to deal with not have success. So the next day I'll feel great. And I can't always finish on something good. I have to finish on something negative. So the next day I'm going to work that much harder to finish always on a good. If I say I'm going to throw 10 pitches, I'm throwing 10 pitches. And if that 10th pitch is not good, I'm going to walk away because that's part of my mental game. But also catchers, I was honest to the catchers. Hey, I'm going to try to bounce a couple today. Let them know, hey, I don't want to bounce any, whatnot. I'm going to try to throw them here and there. And I would be that's kind of, I'd build a relationship and shagging with the guys and kind of talking to the catchers about, hey, what do you like doing? But this is also what I like doing. And, in the bullpen, just like this is especially a new guy. Like I'm a big believer on, I'm going to call the game, but if you put something down and I go no, and you put the same pitch down, 99% of the time I'm going to go, okay, you see something I don't, so okay. If I say, you're saying fastball and I'm like, no, I'm going to throw the curve, and you say no, throw that fastball, that just tells me that you see something I don't. And I want you to have that control, but also let you know in the back of your mind, if I tell you no again 2 times, I'm throwing my pitch. So don't be stubborn and put it down the third time, because then we're going to start fighting, with our minds and stuff. So, and as long as you tell them that in spring training, they kind of get the gist of it. And they're kind of like, oh, you're going to listen to me, but secretly you're not going to listen to me. And that's kind of how they take it. It's kind of like, oh, you kind of really believe in what I'm doing back behind the dish. But you also tell them, don't do it 2 times. You do it once, but at the end of the day, I'm getting wins and losses. You're not. And they trust that, and you just build that confidence and build that trust between them. And sometimes you want curveball, and they give that, and you throw that and execute that pitch and be 100% convicted, and it works. And go, man, yeah, you were right, even though maybe you were like, maybe should I throw fast, or maybe should I throw curve? Oh, he wants a fastball. Okay, let's do that. But you show him more confident that he was right than you. And then he starts believing in himself more and in you. And then you just, you mesh, you get together. So.
Absolutely. The other thing that's circling the Padres right now, as pitchers and catchers report, is there's a lot of trade rumors around these guys: Dylan Cease, Michael King, Robert Suarez. You've been traded in your career multiple times, different times of the year. Obviously, whenever these guys get asked about trades, it's kind of this, the status quo canned answer of, I'm just focused on performing, it's out of my control, et cetera, et cetera. In reality, how much do trade rumors kind of, bother you or stick around in the back of your head when you're out there trying to get ready for the season?
You try not to read the papers or the internet that way. If you're on social media all the time, then you're going to run into it. You try not to let it focus. I mean, my last 3 years in San Diego, I was rumored to get traded in spring training, and I just focused on spring training and what I needed to do. But it was annoying. I will tell you, it was just like real. I look at them and they go, "Hey, have you heard this trade?" I'm like, "No." I would kind of be sarcastic, but play with it. Say, you know what? I was going to get traded to the NFL. I'm going to the Chargers. Like, and somebody was like, "Are you not taking this seriously?" I'm like, "How can I? Every year I feel like I'm going to get traded." The only thing I was disappointed about me getting traded my last couple years in San Diego, I never got a bobblehead. So
Yeah.
because if you're going to trade somebody, you can't have a bobblehead date mid season or whatnot. So that's kind of a bitter side of me back in my playing days that I wish I would have had. But I understand it's part of the game, and you do your best to block it out. But I'll give you an example. There was one game we were playing the Mets or the Yankees, and I think I gave up a base hit and a run, but we still won the game. And I said something like, well, I wasn't trying to throw it there or something, but they misquoted me. And my wife called me and goes, why did you say you were trying to let him hit the ball that day? And I'm like, I didn't say that, but they wrote that. I'm like, don't believe everything. I mean, she's been married to me for many years at this time. And all of a sudden she just was convicted that I said that. And I'm like, no, I didn't say that. So, and it was like, yeah, I was just trying to let him hit the ball today. I was like, wasn't trying to let him hit the ball today. Didn't have my best stuff. Or it was like, I don't know with a comment, but it was like, even her was like getting on me about it. And during the trade, we would literally shut the TV off during mid-season in July, June, July, and just play board games before I went to the field, like a couple days leading up, because I thought I was going to get traded at the deadline and just didn't want to hear anything about anything, because it was just annoying. It was like, am I going to pack up and move? It wasn't all that. It was just like, if you're going to do it, or let's not talk about it. So, but I know you got to write something about it, and every writer's got to say something, but it's just, it can get annoying when it's constant, like I think King and Cease are they're just like, whatever, but if it keeps happening all season long, they're going to be like, all right, this is how they're going to take it. I got one more year with the Pods or two more before a free agency. I guess they don't really want me here. So I'm just going to try to do the best I can. And that's it. But if you're in negotiation to talks to stay there long term, and if you want to stay there long term, like I did, you kind of go, you don't want me? Come on. I want to stay here. I love the fans. I love the area. I want to stay here the whole career. And, or the rest of my career. And it's a little frustrating, but, like I said, going back a couple episodes, when the GM and the ownership are honest with you, I think it helps out the players a lot. If they say, look, we'd love to have you, but the way ownership is and where things are go, we might have to trade you. I don't want to trade you, but we'll just have to wait and see the season. Then you kind of respect and go, okay, I get it. It's a business. But if they're like, we really want to keep you, we want you to stay here. And then all these trade rumors come up. You're like, okay, then you just like, okay, I'm not going to believe anything you tell me anymore.
Yeah.
So you lose that relationship, even though you pretend like you have a relationship, but you really don't.
Yeah. No, honesty is always the best policy. And I think look, Cease, King, Suarez, these guys are true pros. They're going to go out, they're going to do their job to the best of their ability, and we'll see what happens. Heath, obviously, there's a lot of spring left. We need to see how everything plays out. How much did you put into, spring training performances? If guys go out and just really don't look good in spring, whether it's a pitcher, a hitter, someone versus, hey, maybe it's just he's still ramping up. And then on the flip side, if you saw a guy go off in spring, how much did you put stock into it? Either way.
Pitchers, I think it's your last three outings. Really your last two outings, because you're trying to be pretty much game oriented, unless you're playing somebody. If you're playing like facing the Dodgers and 2 weeks into the spring training, you're facing the Dodgers. It's pitchers. It's kind of your last, like I said, last 2 or 3 outings and see how they're doing. Hitters, if they're struggling early when guys are just throwing fastballs and they're struggling all spring, you're kind of like, he's not going to have a good year. But if he can get some hits early in spring and then maybe fall off a little bit, it's not a big deal, because early on, everybody's throwing you fastballs because everybody's trying to establish a fastball. So you want to get some hits. I'm not worried about home runs and doubles and all that. I'm just worried about getting base hits, because when a hitter starts getting base hits, they start feeling comfortable. They start feeling better. Some guys, I know certain guys would go to spring training and the whole game, they're like, I'm going to call every pitch, like fat or ball and strike. I might strike out. I might walk. I might strike out 3 times, not even swinging. but that's what I'm doing. I'm going up there to say that's a strike swing, but I'm not going to swing. So they would take some games and do that. Where I kind of feel like, if a hitter's struggling in spring training, they might struggle during the season until they kind of get hot. But then you have the flip side. If this guy's totally tearing it up in spring training and you can't get him out, who's he really facing? Is he facing the minor league guys that are coming up? They're, just happy to be there and trying to do their best, or are they actually facing big league talent? So that's another take. You gotta see who are they really facing. This young guy, he's doing really well, but he's always, playing the second half of the game, and the second half of the game is those double A, triple A guys that get called up that aren't going to make the team. They're just throwing strikes. So are they striking out against like you Darvish, but hitting the minor league guy that nobody even knows about? There's no name on the back.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to see where the guys are doing, but I really believe the hitters they always need that first hit, just like when the season starts. Yeah. Everybody wants to get that first hit in the first game or two, and then they just feel so much better afterwards. And pitchers, they want to put that first zero, and then it's just like, okay, I can start pitching again. And spring training, you want to put up that first zero, but you're also working on things. And I really feel that last week is where pitchers mow down. And if they're doing really well that last week, not their last outing, because it just depends who they're playing, but the last two outings and then the third outing not do so well, I think they're fine. But if you have 2 out of the 3 of the last for pitchers, I think you're fine. Hitters, it's a little bit harder, but I think they need to have a couple hits under their belts, early to be fine. So
for sure. And before we wrap up here, you made an interesting point about the young guys that maybe come out and, put up huge numbers. You have to really watch and see who they're facing. If it's, again, number 97, who's a double A guy, in the 7th inning, or if it's a frontline big league starter. As a veteran who saw a lot of young players come and go, what for you was the tell that, hey, this young guy, this is the real deal. This guy should break camp with us. Like we absolutely, this guy is ready.
You know what? If he's being kind of professional, he's going about his business, he's doing what he needs to, he's working out, he's hitting extra or working on all the, different pitches, like fielding bunts and picking and he's there first. He's not there just showing up with the group, and he's meshing with the guys and he's playing well. That's just one of those things, because some guys will play really well and not talk to anybody. And you're like, do you really mesh, or are you just having a really good spring training? You're going to have to hang out in the clubhouse a little bit. And also, it's like pretend like you're a 5-year vet, but not do it in a disrespectful way. Yeah. Where I said you should be places early saying, hey, I want to win the job, but you're hanging out with everybody, but you leave for stretch a little bit earlier than everybody else. You get to the field a little bit earlier than everybody else. So you're not like the veteran that, hey, the trainers need to work on certain guys at certain times, right? Before, like, the veteran guys would want to work, they'd get stretched out from the trainers and then go out to stretch like 5 minutes later. Yeah. So you're not a young guy doing that. You're a young guy showing up to the training room an hour early, getting your stretch and everything on, then hanging out in the clubhouse, then going out to the stretch. You're pretending like you're a big league guy, but not in a disrespectful way. And you're kind of like, you're young, you want to make it. So you're doing everything a veteran's going to do, except for you're showing up early. You're doing a little bit of extra work, and you're getting to know everybody. So you become one of the guys. And I think that's, I think Tatis did that. And I think Merrill did that in spring training. Yeah. So, you also have some guys that do really well in spring, and they just don't do those things, and they show up when everybody else shows up, and you're just kind of like, well, he's just having a good spring training, but I don't know if he's really a big leaguer yet.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Again, it's a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, off the field, on top of the performance. All right, Heath, I want to wrap up on a fun note here. What is your number one memory of, early spring training, whether it's with teammates, it's on the golf course, on the field, in locker rooms, out at a restaurant and a bar? When you think about, your most fond memories of spring training, particularly when you first reported, what jumps out to you?
So I got two with the Padres that I really, anybody asked me, hey, what do you remember about spring training so much? And I go, okay, one, there was an incident. It was my second year at the Padres, and the pitchers wanted to, the coach said, okay, all the pitchers tell the catchers what you like doing and what makes you successful. And we're all in a group. And they got to me, and I was like, I just want to hit your glove. So just stick your glove wherever you want the ball, just hit it. But everybody's having all these like this paragraph saying, well, I like doing this, I like doing that, blah, blah. And I was like, just want to hit your glove, just stick your glove out. And everybody kind of laughed, like that's all you want. And Josh Bard looked at everybody and was like, well, that's pretty much what he does. He hits your glove. So if you just stick your wherever you put your glove, he's going to hit that spot. He goes, if you put your glove above your head, he'll probably hit you right above the head. So that was kind of a good comical moment. And I wasn't trying to be funny. I was being serious. And then the other is like Bud Black had all these team events, shooting hoops. Young guys would go to the rodeo and do a little video. Some guys would show us, they were campers. They would show us how to, Kouzmanoff shows how to make fire in the clubhouse. One of the times they had a free throw contest, and I wasn't in it. And then Trevor Hoffman didn't show up. Chris Young told me to come. Hey, why don't you? I was there early, and they're like, hey, why don't you shoot? For David Wells, Mike Cameron, and that team. And I said, all right, cool. I got to play because I was like, I want to play basketball. Then we had a hoop out there, and I made 10 out of my 10 free throws or 3-pointers or wherever we shot them. And everybody was really surprised. And then afterwards, my team didn't win. We lost to it was like only 4 teams, but we got to the next round because of me, but then we lost. That stretch, I'm walking a stretch, and everybody's telling me, and goes, man, Heath, I didn't know you could shoot like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you had the touch. You were so smooth and graceful. I didn't know you could do that. And I was looking at them, and I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you were very like smooth and stuff. And I'm like, well, just because I'm herky jerky when I pitch, you think I do everything that way? And they just kind of looked at me, and they kind of were like, yeah. And I was just like, really? Like, I can do a lot of other things. I go, I can dance too. I don't have 2 left feet. I guarantee you all think I can't do anything but this, because a lot of pitchers can pitch and can't do a whole lot. And I'm like, I can do a lot more than, this is just how I can perform the best when I pitch. It's not graceful like everybody else, but I could pitch like that. I'm not going to throw hard. And they just were like dumbfounded. And I found if I pitched the way I did, I would be really effective, and I could throw a lot harder, where I used to throw smooth, like 90% of guys, and I couldn't throw hard. And one Dominican hitting coach came to me that was a pitching coach in the winter ball and asked me, I think you can throw hard. Just try this, this, and this. And I did. Next year I threw, 8 to 10 mile an hour harder. So it just was like, oh my gosh. So, and I could still throw smooth to this day, but if I need to ramp it up, I'm going to be a little herky jerky. So those two memories always come to me talking to the catcher about just hitting the glove, and then shooting free throw contests with Bud Black, all the little things he had. And then everybody asking me, man, you're really smooth and graceful. I'm like, huh? Like, that's how you shoot a basketball. You can't just go, if you guys know Charles Barkley, when he hits a golf club or golf ball, you can't swing like that to be successful. So anyway.
So I have to circle back on something. Kevin Kouzmanoff made a fire in the clubhouse.
Yeah, he's a big outdoors guy, and he kind of showed us, you get 2 pieces of wood and rub them together, and you get like not like dry brush, I don't know what it's called, like dry leaves and stuff like that.
Yeah, but he actually started a fire in the clubhouse.
Yeah, just like a little, got some smoke, and not a huge fire, just a little bit. We had fire extinguishers and water right there, but yeah, he was showing us how to do it. So, I mean, I knew how to do it. My dad taught me, but that's what, the new guys came over and they would teach you how to do, like Bud Black would be like, I heard you're an outdoorsman. Could you build a fire if you were stranded? And he's like, yeah. Well, what I think you need to do is on Thursday, this would be a Monday, Thursday, you're going to show everybody how to make a fire. All right, let's go out to stretch. And that's, is get to know the players. we got to get to know one or two players every time, and that's kind of what happened. So
How
there's
did you guys
guys. Go ahead.
how do you guys contain the fire? Because I mean, there's jerseys, clothes, things can get a light there.
We put a tarp down and put in the middle of the clubhouse. It wasn't like a huge fire. It's just, fire
Yeah,
about the size of your hand, but you could see the smoke and little sparks come up, and you blow on it and it gets bigger, and don't blow on it, it gets less. So, and
fair
then
enough.
I think we had a bucket of water and he just went, it's over.
That works. And I also had to ask about playing basketball with Chris Young, who was 6'10" and played college basketball at Princeton. What was that like?
It was fun. I had a good time with Chris. Chris was an awesome guy. I'm so happy that he's the GM with the Rangers now. Maybe I can be a GM one day, but um, it was fun. We just shot. We didn't really like play. It was more of like horse. The different places, 3-throw, 3-point contest. This and that. It wasn't we were like 1-on-1 or anything, because he probably blocked me a lot. So if I had to, I'd probably have to shoot threes. Couldn't like drive because he would probably just swat everything I did. So, but I mean, Will Venable, that's a coach now. He played college basketball. He was really good. I think at the time he could still dunk. I think Chris did too a couple times, but yeah. So, but we didn't play like 1-on-1 or 3-on-3. We just, shot. So,
All right. So we know who the best was. Who's the worst shooter on the team?
oh, that would definitely be David Wells or Mike Cameron. I thought we were going to be really good. They missed a lot. I can't remember. I was surprised. I could have sworn Mike and David would have done better than me, and they both just missed a lot. So, yeah, it was surprising. Really was.
I'll have to circle back with Mike on that when he comes on next
Well,
week.
I asked him because I don't know. I can't remember if it was Mike or David that they didn't have it that day. I was just draining them, and everybody was surprised. So, but I know I remember watching Mike and making some, but for the life of me, I think either both of them didn't do well or one of them, and I can't remember exactly who did the worst. So,
Absolutely.
for the sake of argument, I hope Mike didn't do the worst, because I'm saying, or maybe I'm saying he did the worst, and then he's going to be on the show and get mad at me. But I just remember did the best out of all three of us, and I'm like, or I think Chris Young was on our team too, and I was just amazed. I'm like, huh? Yeah. So like, these guys I thought were, I just thought they were way better than me, and maybe it was just my day. I don't know. So.
Absolutely. The joys of spring training, making fires in the clubhouse, shooting hoops, just hanging out with your teammates.
I should ask him about some of the rodeo. Bud Black, he would always send a young Latin guy or a young guy that had no idea about rodeo, put him in a cowboy hat and some spurs and whatnot, and go to the rodeo and get like backstage passes and stuff. And it was always fun to watch that. It really was.
Would they just walk around, or would they actually get him on a horse?
No, they got him a press pass, and they had a camera crew with them. It's like somebody with a camera, kind of one of the press guys would go, and they would do this little like commercial and ask the actual people questions, the rodeo guys, the cowboys, and they'd have to bring it in and tell us all about it, and then we'd watch the video. So it was really fun, because these guys like, you ever been to a rodeo? No. You ever been on a horse? No. Well, you're going to a rodeo. Some guys would try a horse, some guys wouldn't. So, but it was fun. It was always doing something out of it was a team building thing. It wasn't like to punish anybody. It was just to get everybody closer together. That's all it was.
Who was the funniest video from the rodeos that you can remember?
Oh man. Honestly, the funniest videos were probably the guys that didn't make the team. Because he'd always call the really young guys have a chance to make the team or not. And they would do those activities and stuff. And I remember I don't remember if he ever made it, but a Latin guy, he's from the Dominican, never been on a horse or never seen a horse or something. And he was like, what? So that was the funniest, because he was just like, put him in a cowboy hat. He looked funny. We've got him Wrangler jeans and cowboy boots. And he was like, he just didn't like it. He was like a Louis Vuitton guy. But yeah, I can't remember the name because I don't think he made it, to be honest with you.
No worries, all good. It's the memories that count most. Well, Heath, thank you so much for providing your insight, your expertise on what to watch for as pitchers and catchers report, as well as your fun stories. We always enjoy it.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Let's go. Let's get spring training started. I'm excited to watch some spring training baseball, even though it's not about wins and losses. It's just to see how the guys are doing.
Absolutely.
That's how I watch it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We'll all be watching and seeing it up close in Peoria,
Oh, I'll give
Arizona
you
as
one
well.
tidbit about spring training. For 3 years in a row, I won the speed pitch in the stands.
Really?
I on my off day and we didn't have to go to the game, I'd put my regular clothes on and then go to the speed pitch. And they used to give you shirts when you'd win that day. And I'd be like Bob Teicher or something, and one of my friends' names. And yeah, for 3 years in a row, I was like, I'm speed champion of the day. They would never know that would be me. And sometimes I'd rag on my own team having a hot dog and a beer in the stands. Some of our players would like get mad and I'd be screaming and yelling at them, and then they look at me and do a double take. And I used to do that to Adrian all the time. It was fun.
So let me guess. You just regular clothes. You'd give them a
Yeah.
fake name at speed pitch, win, and then grab a hot dog and a beer at the stands and just razz your
Yell at
teammates.
Adrian or something, or Kouzmanoff on the side. Yeah, you're horrible. You can't catch the ball. You can't swing. As soon as they see me, they're looking at me. As soon as I get a little chuckle, I just stop. But it's just, it's kind of fun.
How often did you get recognized in the stands?
Not too often, to be honest with you. I would only be there for maybe 2 or 3 innings, but I get probably a lot of head nods, like, no, that can't be him. So that's what happened, because I'd put the speed pitch shirt on, and I was the fastest guy, and they'd be like, oh, he can't now. So anyway, yeah, put
Heath
some
Bell.
sunglasses on, you wouldn't notice me. Okay.
I was gonna say Heath Bell incognito. Should have gone full Bobby Valentine with the mustache and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, that would have been fun.
Absolutely. All right, Heath. Well, great stories as always. We appreciate it. Once again, this has been another episode of Friar Territory. Go ahead and give us a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever platform you're listening on. Give us a like. We'd love to hear from you. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.